Welcome back. In a 165-page report, Attorney General Letitia James has concluded that Governor Andrew Cuomo sexually harassed multiple women in violation of state and federal law. What is next? Lawyers representing the women and a growing number of New York state legislators all agree that Governor Cuomo must resign. One of those state legislators joins us here today. Welcome, Assembly Member of Assembly District 85, Kenny Burgos. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on, Sanji.
Of course. So, Assemblymember Burgos, you joined a growing list of legislators calling for Governor Cuomo's resignation. What were your thoughts as soon as the AG's report came out?
The report was damning. To be quite honest, I don't even think I believed it would be as damning as it was. But the Attorney General said unequivocally that the governor sexually assaulted multiple women of his staff and of his team and committed crimes, federal and state.
And now, between now and the time that this show airs, many things may change. But what would it mean if the governor resigned today? What would happen next, and who would take his place as governor?
Well, if the governor resigns today, the lieutenant governor, Kathy Hochul, would immediately assume the position of governor of New York and finish out his term.
Thank you for that. And Governor Cuomo, of course, continues to deny any wrongdoings even after the report was released, and even released his own attorney's report. What would happen if he doesn't resign?
Well, if the governor doesn't resign, the assembly has the constitutional power in New York to move forward impeachment proceedings. Now, that's going to be up to the assembly majority of Democratic assembly members and also the speaker. We're in conversations now to see how we're deciding to move forward. We do have our own investigation separate and apart from the attorney general. So right now, it's still an ongoing conversation.
Right. I definitely wanted to ask about that investigation by the assembly. I know that back in March, the New York State Assembly and Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie announced a plan to launch an investigation that could pave the way for a possible impeachment, no, of Mr. Cuomo. Can you tell us a little bit more about this investigation? I know you said that it's in talks, but what were the procedures back in March and up till now?
So our investigation is still ongoing. It's being handled by the Assembly's Judiciary Committee, but our investigation is a bit broader. Whereas the Attorney General's investigation was into the sexual misconduct and sexual harassment in the office, our investigation expands upon that with also the $5 million the governor made from his book deal, with the COVID-19 scandal, with the nursing home data, and also some information on the Mario M. Cuomo bridge in regards to its integrity, the bridge's integrity.
Got it. Thank you for that, Assembly member. The Attorney General also added that they found Cuomo and his senior staff retaliated against at least one accuser who was a former employee as well. Is there a concern that the governor can use his power, influence, and intimidation to get out of this case entirely too?
That's always been a concern, unfortunately. It's something we've seen in the past. It's something that is pretty much well known in the political sphere. I don't believe at this moment there is much retaliation he can do. As you know, the report is concluded. We have data, we have information, we have eyewitness reports, we have emails. There's so much information now at our disposal. I'm not really sure if any retaliation efforts would even benefit him.
Assembly member, I wanted to bring up your tweet from the day of when the report was released, of course. So you mentioned that these actions have no place in politics or anywhere else. And you reiterated, of course, your call for the governor's resignation. Just tell me a little bit more about, how this is also a violation of state and federal law. Obviously, it would be illegal then, no?
Yeah, it's a crime. I mean, at the end of the day, sexual harassment and sexual misconduct is something that the New York State Legislature has put at the forefront on things we wanted to change in Albany and for New York State. But it's also a federal crime, and it has been for a long time. And these are the words from the Attorney General, not myself. So the fact that she's concluded that with her investigators, with her team of lawyers, I think it's clean and clear to know that he has committed a crime and is no longer fit for office.
In your opinion, what does this all mean for women in general and the state of politics in New York City, not only for politicians, but for the people of New York City as well?
It's difficult. My heart goes out and I sympathize with women who have, experienced this sort of abuse, women who work in these abusive spaces. It creates a very, very complicated work environment, unfortunately, but this is why we have to call these things out. This is why we have to kind of dismantle this kind of culture and create a much more, comforting and open and inclusive space for everyone.
And how exactly can we do that moving forward? How should people in power positions like the governor do better? And what can happen next?
Well, one, we can start by, not committing these egregious acts. We do have sexual harassment trainings that are mandated by state law. I take them, my staff takes them, and everyone in New York State takes them. So we can start with, increasing those trainings, maybe increasing how often we take them. But also, again, it comes down to calling it out when it happens. So even someone as powerful as the governor of New York, by handling a situation like this just sends a message to everyone that this will not be tolerated. This is not acceptable in the workplace and not acceptable anywhere, frankly.
Right. As I remember, Burgos, I also know that the President Biden also joins the calls out for resignation of Governor Cuomo and so do a few other people as well, including Nancy Pelosi. Can you tell me just about, what power does the president have in terms of removing a governor out of office when something like this happens?
Well, the president actually has absolutely no power in terms of official power for removing the governor from office, to my knowledge. But the president of the United States is the leader of our party, the leader of the Democratic Party, and I think him speaking out sends a big message. That even whether you're in the Democratic Party, same party as us, we will not tolerate this sort of sexual harassment. So the president speaking out on this, I think, sends a huge message. But as far as official power, the official power lies within the assembly right now.
And if that investigation by the assembly does go through and, people look into it and the governor, takes that into or the governor's office takes that into account, is there, any way that he can also get out of that as well? Can he just say deny allegations again and, stay in his seat as governor?
So impeachment proceedings in New York are a bit different than we're used to on the federal level, whereas Donald Trump was impeached twice but continued to be our president until the end of his term. If we were to file impeachment proceedings in the state of New York with the Assembly, the governor would immediately no longer be the sitting governor of New York. It would be Kathy Hochul, but then he would go to trial. So this would be a normal criminal trial that we're used to seeing on TV or any sort of entertainment, but it's not entertainment. This is an actual trial, and if the governor's, with his team of lawyers and our lawyers, somehow is found not guilty, then he'd be found not guilty. If he's found guilty, then he is. But this essentially just removes him from office immediately as an impeachment trial.
Right. And before we go, Assemblymember Burgos, just a message to Bronxites as well. During these times, there's so much turmoil when it comes to politics, and there's so much going on. What can you tell Bronxites at this time?
What I'll tell Bronxites is, I know it can be difficult to try to digest news that comes day in and day out, and this can feel political or not, but this is not political. This is really just speaking out against sexual harassment. This is about speaking against violence in the workplace, power plays, and that's what we really want to fix, that kind of culture, and take it as such. So I ask Bronxites to look at this thoroughly, take a look at the report and really check out the details of the story, because unfortunately this is us calling out sexual harassment in the workplace, and this kind of behavior is unacceptable in New York.
Right. I think it's very important to note that, this is public information. It's available online for everyone to read and take a look at for themselves. So thank you for bringing that up, Assemblymember Burgos. Since we have you here, I want to take advantage and talk a little bit about the vaccination mandates that recently came out as well. Could you tell us a little bit about what this means for New Yorkers and people who are not vaccinated?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a group of people who have been very hesitant to get the vaccine for one reason or another, and I've been doing my best, to speak with people and try to address their concerns. I know there are many concerns, but unfortunately, I think we're going to be moving to a space where we're going to have a lot more mandates, whether from the private sector or like we've seen from city employees and state employees. And I think, unfortunately, we will reach a point where it will be very difficult to kind of live your life in New York State or New York City without having a vaccine. I urge to New Yorkers and Bronxite that this really is for the benefit of everyone. This is for us to truly, truly end this COVID pandemic. Otherwise, we will live with a mass season. We will live with COVID on a year-to-year basis, and we have the power and technology and the science and ability to remove it. This really just comes down to the will of the people.
One more thing, what does this all mean for the budget, coming up? Is this gonna halt it? The fact that the governor is currently in this situation. What's gonna happen with that?
The state budget?
Yes.
Well, the state budget was passed a few months ago, so I mean, we're not even in legislative session, so it shouldn't halt or really affect our state budget for the next year in any way, so long as this isn't dragged out, and I don't expect it to. So it shouldn't have any implications.
Thank you for breaking that down. And before we go, Assemblymember Burgos, just how people can stay in touch with you in your office and get in contact with you if they need anything at this time.
Yep. So all my social media handles are at Kenny Burgos NY. So that's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And my email is burgosk@nyassembly.gov. So happy to help, happy to direct people to whatever resources they need. If I can be helpful directly, I'm happy to do so as well.
Thank you so much for your time and thank you for speaking to us about this very important topic today.
Thank you so much.
We'll be right back here on Open BXRX Tuesday.